the introduction, and thanks for inviting me out here. It's a pleasure to talk to a set of people representing the travel industry. I used to work as part of my job at Google. For a couple of years, I used to work on the travel vertical, and like Anil mentioned, some part of my work on structured data features in search also crossover into the travel vertical, such as things like attractions and restaurants and hotels, things of that nature. It's always interesting to meet people who are much closer to that industry and even operating within that industry. Also for me personally, event like this gives an opportunity to step back from like what's happening in the day-to-day of my job and step back and see, okay, why are we doing what we are doing and how that fits in with the trend in the industry. And sort of put that together for myself as well as hopefully interesting for everyone out here. I was here a couple of years ago, and one of the trends I talked about was specifically about mobile and social. And that was a time when mobile penetration in the market was less than 50%. And we talked about how mobile's on a hockey stick curve and how that's going to change a lot of things that we are doing. And of course, everybody had predicted that, right? That's the trend it was on. And it's indeed changed life quite a bit, right? Quite a bit for all of us. And it's been very transformative for the industry in terms of kinds of services the industry can offer, as well as for the consumer in the array of devices and services that are available for the consumer. So I thought this was a good opportunity to say, okay, we have crossed the knee of the curve there in terms of mobile adoption. Obviously, Western world, everybody has a smartphone. But even in the emerging world, the penetration rates keep going up, and there's this new mantra of the next billion users, and the next billion users will come from the emerging world, and they'll come through smartphones. They'll access the internet for the first time in their lives, but through smartphones. They'll not own laptops. So it's an interesting trend, and then this is an opportunity to say, now where does this take us, right? Okay, so everybody's got a smartphone and they got apps, and they can access navigation and maps and stuff. So where does this take us? And this was the topic. I thought it would be interesting to talk about assistants, and let's sort of introduce this topic and then see. Okay, so let's. Sorry for the technical glitch there, but we're all set up here. So let's talk about what's an assistant and what's an assistant in real life. Many of us have assistants, expect them to be like Swiss Army knives, right? And that's what this picture is conveying. It's like an assistant helps you with so many different tasks with your work or your personal life. And just in case you thought I was trying to be gender biased out here, I used all male pictures for the next one so that we're a little neutral on that one. So, and the concept of assistant is more complicated than that of a secretary, right? And in real life, you use assistants in many different tasks that you do in real life. So you have a financial assistant, and you have a travel assistant or a travel agent, and you have a lawyer or a legal assistant. And so basically there are experts in different walks of life who end up being assistants and who actually know that domain really, really well, but also know your situation really, really well. Like a real estate agent knows your financial situation, your geographical preferences really, really well, and matches. And that's the key thing. They match and they predict. They match your interest with whatever you're desiring to find, and they can also be predictive and learning. So after you have said no this house, no to that house, no to that house, kind of like this house, they sort of start predicting what kinds of houses you like and start showing you better matches for your preference. And that's the property you want of any kind of assistant. And really the key question is, okay, smartphones are really smart, but can your phone do all of this? Well, clearly the answer is no. The phone has a bunch of services which tries to help you, like Zillow tries to help you with your real estate task, or Strava tries to help you with your exercise task, and so on and so forth. But they're not really as efficient and as predictive and as learning as real-life assistants. And then what does it really, the bulk of the talk is then, where are we right now with technology, and what would it take for your smartphone to take on more and more of the assistant tasks? So let's step back. Let's step back just a little bit in time and see how the internet industry or the search industry has progressed over the last 15 to 20 years or so. So not quite 1985, but somewhat in that time frame. So what is search, right? If you distill it down to its simplest terms, search is really about you come to this search box with a need. You can express this need in terms of a few words, and out comes a bunch of websites. That's traditional search, right? Out comes a bunch of websites, and you go to those websites and avail of whatever services you want to avail of. And those websites are expected to be relevant for the query you typed in. So really the expectation there is you should be able to distill your needs down to a few words, and those are the queries, and maybe a few such queries, and look at websites, poke around, navigate around the websites, find the services you want, and stitch those services together to really do what you want. If you think about in your industry, like what it takes for an average user to find an ideal vacation, and how many searches they have to express, and how many websites they have to explore to get a hotel reservation and a flight reservation, and then the restaurants and the attractions and tickets and events all around their travel. That's really what the user has to do. And so the user is playing the assistant in that one, and the search engine is just a tool which can respond to any query and give you services in response to that query. But that's what search is. And it's a pretty powerful tool, and it is a Swiss Army knife. But the fundamental thing here is it's demand-driven. You need to know what to ask, and you demand that thing of the search engine, and it gives you back something that is relevant in response to what you asked. So that's the fundamental paradigm of search. But in exchange for that, it opens a window to billions of websites, or today trillions of websites out there. And you don't have to know the names of the trillion websites. So that was the fundamental power of search. And then if you look back to search circa 10 years ago, really there was only one type of response search had, which was what we now call blue links and snippets. Basically, you search for something like Amazon, and then you get back a link, and then there's some description of what that link would do for you, such as Amazon is an online retailer, and so on and so forth. And it would give you 10 such links, it would give you a next page, and that's really what search was. And the next step in evolution of search was, and this sort of comes down to bulk of my work over the last few years. We started to understand more about the real world and be able to model the real world. So for example, when you search for the height of Mount Everest, it's not just a bunch of words saying this word called Mount and another word called Everest and another word called height. We actually know that Mount Everest is a thing. It's a very specific thing. And it's a mountain, and mountains have heights, so you can actually understand the notion of a mountain and a mountain having height and understand a query in those terms. And then the response is not a Wikipedia page only which has your answer, but it's actually an answer. It's 29,000 feet, right? And then you can decorate the answer with pictures and compare Mount Everest to other mountains, so you get the answer in context. So that was sort of a big leap over the last few years that search began to understand the real world, model it, and model properties of the real world. And then then this just got a life of itself. It's not just about Mount Everest height, but you can ask about the winners of Oscar awards. Or you can ask, why is the sky blue? Which is a very, very subjective and a scientific question. Or you can ask for the list of most polluted countries in the world. And there's a variety of such answers that you can get today from the search engine. And it's all by virtue of the fact that we can model the real world, and we can model properties of the real world. And we can understand queries much like humans might understand queries, and not just in terms of words. Going from answers, then search engines began to understand actions as well. So it's not only about answering the height of Mount Everest, but you search for Katy Perry, then really the biggest intent a user might have is, where can I listen to songs of Katy Perry? And that's really the big intent there. Or if you search for Interstellar, the movie, the biggest intent might be, if it's playing in theaters, then where is it playing near me, and where can I buy the tickets? If it's out of theaters, then is it on Netflix, is it on Amazon, is it on Vudu, where is this streamable? And that's the concept of an action, because traditionally you would have to search for watch Interstellar movie, and hopefully the search engine understands those and brings you results from Netflix and Amazon and Vudu and whatever. But here you get a very concise and very structured representation of, here are the places you can watch the movie, or here are the places you can listen to songs of Katy Perry. And you click on that, then you get into a very mobile optimized app experience, or if you're on desktop, then you get to the website. So that was another big leap. We went from blue links and snippets to direct access to answers, but also direct access to actions. And this, Apple's done a great job at that. Google's pushed a lot on that. Baidu. There's a variety of companies around the world which have pushed in the direction of actions and answers. So if you ask Siri about movies playing near you, or if you ask Siri to set a timer, a wake-up timer, or ask for the games of a sport, Siri can respond really well. And again, in a very concise form, which doesn't require you to go navigate websites and such, but you could get the answers directly in the Siri interface. And that they too picked on the same theme of actions and answers, and they have done a great job at exposing those for the user. The other big leap to talk about besides actions and answers is voice. Voice is a very, very fundamental human activity. It's a fundamental activity of intelligent beings in a way, and computers were out of that loop. They were not. Microsoft had done a lot on PCs to enable voice input and voice output. Of course, voice output because you can play multimedia, but voice input is harder. You have to understand voice. And it never really caught on. It was fundamentally a natural way to talk to a laptop. But phones you talk to all the time. Of course, you make calls. It seemed like it was a natural extension of the phone interface, just because it's such a personal device to be able to talk to it. And that was a big leap. And it was a huge advance in technology to be able to filter out noise from the environment, to break down essentially what are wave patterns, which is what you get to the computer when you speak. These are sound waves. And to break the sound waves down into phonemes and break the phonemes, put phonemes together into words, and finally make a query out of it. And that was a big leap. And again, Google, Apple, everybody's pushed hard in that direction. And then the last thing I wanted to sort of highlight as a big step over the last few years is language. So once you get into voice, once you talk to a computer or a phone with voice, it's very unnatural to talk in terms of keywords. It's very unnatural to say red shoes. You would rather say, where can I buy red shoes? Something like that, right? Or where can I find tickets to Hawaii? It's not Hawaii flights. You wouldn't say that. And this was a clear observation as users started using voice search, that users were using those as if they were talking to another human being and not talking to a computer. And in Google, we call the traditional search query language as like Googlies. It's not a way that you would talk to a human being, but it's a way people learn to talk to a search engine, because people realize you give short amounts of text and you would get a relevant answer back. You type in a long piece of text, actually you might get garbage back. It's very hard for computers to understand that. So to understand natural language when it's spoken, but also to be able to understand that in the same sense that human beings understand. So the first two examples are of Siri, right? You can ask, what time does Whole Foods close? 10 years back, you typed something like that into the search engine, you would likely get garbage back. But now, the computer or the phone has to really understand that what time is a very specific thing, right? Like a store has timings. You need to understand that notion. And timings are of two types, opening type and close type. And then you understand the query in those terms, and you can understand fairly complicated formulations. Or send a text. And anything that you say after send a text is just literal quotations, and that you just stick into the text message. The phone has to understand that. The next two examples are of Google, and you can ask in a very natural way, what's the weather like in San Francisco today, or do I need to carry an umbrella tomorrow? And then the service can map that into, okay, carry an umbrella means something about rain and something about weather, and then answer back saying, no, you don't need to carry an umbrella tomorrow. Or set a timer for 6:30 a.m. tomorrow. You can talk in a very natural way. So that's essentially the summary of some of the big steps that search and search-like services have evolved with over the last 7-8 years, I would say. And really that of search, understanding, and modeling real-world sports teams, movies, artists, songs, things of that nature. Being able to answer, such as Mount Everest height, but also give you direct links into actions as to where can I play or stream the Interstellar movie. That was the second big evolution. Understanding voice, and as a consequence, getting subjected to more natural language interaction, and then being able to understand the natural language interaction. Now, I used the word demand-driven a few slides ago. If you think about it, despite all of these advances, this is still not an assistant. This is a service which understands a lot more, for sure, but it's still demand-driven. It cannot predict your interests. It cannot predict your needs. It doesn't know your priorities. It doesn't know much about you, actually. But you speak something, you say something in a very human manner, in a natural language manner, it can understand that. So that's still a big step, still not an assistant. So let's come back to today. This is the state of search technologies today, right? Be it Google or Bing or Baidu or Siri for that matter. This is roughly the state of the search technology. It's still not, we still don't have assistants. But there is a huge wave of innovation in the direction of what does it take. Now that we have built up all of this technology over the last decade, what does it take to reach assistant-like functionality? And I'll give you a glimpse or a summary of some explorations that are happening in different companies. One interesting thing, and this is a little counterintuitive, and people don't associate chat with the notion of a search-like services. Chat is one thing, highly social. There's social networks, there's chat, there's search. And people put those in very different boxes, right? And it's very natural because you use chat more to communicate with your friends. It's a one-on-one chat. It's a conversation with a friend. Where does chat come in as a service provider for your information needs, other than your friends being able to tell you something, right? Hey, has anybody been to Paris? Where did you stay? And those are conversations people might have on chat, but not with a machine, with other people who are usually their friends. But of course, I don't expect you to read this. A lot of this is in Chinese. But I wanted to highlight some innovations that VChat has made. I don't know if folks here are familiar with VChat. I'm sure people are familiar with WhatsApp, obviously, and Facebook Messenger and stuff. VChat, over the last few years, basically it's a product by Tencent, a Chinese company. And it has just exploded in its popularity, primarily still in the Orient, very focused on the Chinese market, but all signs indicate that it would expand beyond China. They have ambitions far beyond China. But the thing that they have done, again, very specifically in China, is they have expanded chat into a platform. It's not only about two people or groups of people sending text message-like messages to each other. They have built it as a service platform. For example, they have built calendaring services. And through the calendaring services, you can go book an appointment with a doctor. And that's the first example on the left. They actually host calendars of medical services. And then you can go and pick whatever specialty doctor at whatever medical group, and you can book an appointment. And that through the chat interface. Or you can pick the middle one and the middle picture out there, and there's a plethora of local services such as pre-order a latte at the Starbucks, or pre-order a sandwich at the McDonald's. And you can do all of that through the chat interface. And the way they have done that is actually you talk through the service, again through a chat interface, like book an appointment with Dr. blah blah at 4:30 on Friday. And then pops up a screen like that, which says, okay, 4:30 Friday, filled in with Dr. whoever, and accept. And then a message goes out to the doctor, again, through a very chat-like interface. And if you think about it, chat is actually a very, very basic form of communication, but it's a very natural communication between people. And their concept was, why can't it be a communication between people and services? The last example was that of reporting traffic incidents. And again, like services like Waze allow you to report traffic incidents. VChat allows you to report traffic incidents straight to the police, or other neighborhood and suspicious activity incidents, things of that nature. And you can report them to the police. And there's a form right in the chat interface. So what that is basically saying is that, okay, there's nothing written down saying search or voice is necessarily the interface for you to get information and information-based services. Why can't it be chat? And these guys have shown that it can catch on in China, and why not in the rest of the world? One thing that we have done at Google is we have expanded the scope of what we can offer for local services. Traditionally, and you could say even 2 years back, really you search for a restaurant or you search for for a massage place or a haircut salon, you could get their address and their phone number, and then you started getting their opening hours. But that's not all, right? You want to know what services they offer, and can you book a service even? So those were some of the advances, like the restaurant on the left, like a big thing you care about for restaurants is the menu, but you also care about booking a table or ordering online for home delivery. And now those services are integrated into the local interface. Or for a haircut place, sort of like a menu, except it's a menu of services. And then you can see the menu of services for the haircut place, again in the local interface. And there is a link to calendaring, and so you can click on book an appointment, and you can book an appointment through the local interface. Sort of like what I showed you for VChat for book an appointment with a doctor, but this is through the search interface. And the general theme I wanted to emphasize was like, okay, once you go beyond answers and actions, you actually want to know about offline services. Much of the world, like it or not, all of us work closer to tech, but most of the world operates offline. It's still people go to shops and buy stuff, right? Or people go to, there's still no online haircut to my knowledge. People still have to go to shops and get their haircut. So with that, what it means is much of commerce is still offline and will remain offline. You still have to go to the shops, or maybe services come to your house, and you need to know about their menu of services, their prices, you need to know about their calendars. And now this is where sort of one advance is happening, being able to connect offline calendars and offline services and their menu through the information interface. And there's a proliferation of that. This is just to show you a spectrum of innovation that's happening, right? And I'm sure many of you have already availed of some of these services. I'm sure folks have availed of Uber or Lyft, basically taxi booking services, right? Another example of taxis is a offline concept, right? Taxis are not online. You hail a cab. That's what you naturally do. But what Uber showed was that by connecting the map location and the availability of a taxi and across many taxis to online service, you could make that market far more efficient. And then you can introduce things like surge pricing. You can predict that the cab's going to come to your house in 2 minutes or that sort of thing. Airbnb opened up the whole untapped market of people wanting to rent out their houses to travelers or to tourists. So that was sort of there was no easy way for that market to access its customers, and Airbnb opened that possibility up. Instacart is another one. I use it all the time, and I think it's a fantastic service. Saves me time all the time, which is you can pick the things you want from Whole Foods or Safeway or Costco, and click OK. And some person, I don't even know which person, right? They have a whole set of people who are signed up as delivery people for Instacart, and they happen to be at Costco. They pick up my stuff, and for a 5% tip, they'll bring the thing to me, and for $100 a year, I can have the service without any additional charge. And the potential that this sort of thing has to make life a lot more efficient, right? Like one driver can deliver Costco stuff to 10 households instead of 10 people going to Costco and each of them spending an hour. Just makes life far more efficient. Or Uber opens up so many untapped cars for taxi services, that sort of thing. But basically connecting it to the previous theme, I was talking about connecting the offline world and being able to know about resources in the offline world and connecting them to online in a far more detailed way than just knowing their address and phone number. It's about knowing their services, it's knowing about how much it costs, it's knowing about availability. And internationally, and this is a set of examples from India, this is actually going gangbusters, right? In India, there's a huge innovation going on connecting the offline world to online. Just like what VChat was doing for China through a single service, there's like a proliferation of services simply because labor is relatively cheaper, and it's cheaper for ordinary people to have like a home yoga session or home massage therapist or things of that nature. It's not outrageously expensive in India, and there's a large set of people who are willing to come to your house to give that service instead of you driving a few kilometers, which is very hard and time-consuming, given the traffic that you have in Indian cities. And so the example on the left is this company called HouseJoy, which has aggregated home services such as plumbers, electricians, nurses, doctors, that sort of thing. And you can book those services online, and then they come to you. And again, they have integrated calendaring services as well as the service menu. And the example on the right is Ola Cafe. Ola is essentially the Indian version of Uber, Ola Cabs. They started as a cab company. And they then realized that, hey, cabs are not just for ferrying people around. In general, cabs could ferry any kind of object around. You can use it as a courier service. You can use it as a grocery service. You can use it as a food delivery service. As long as the taxi driver can pick something from one place and deliver it to another place, that thing does not have to be a person. It can be anything else. And they can use the same set of logistics to do the coordination and make life efficient for people. And so then Ola is expanding into grocery delivery and food delivery and things of that nature. So where does that leave us, right? So basically then what we are saying is we have gone from awareness of objects in the world, their properties, such as height of Mount Everest, actions, answers, to voice, to natural language. And really what is happening right now is an explosion in people exploring. Now that you have these basic tools built up, how do we connect people to services? And the services need not only be about addresses and phone numbers. They could be about something far more specific, such as where can I get a children's haircut on Saturday at 3 p.m., right? Can they come to my house to give the haircut? That sort of thing. What is certainly the case today is there is no one dominant platform. There's huge amount of fragmentation. Uber is its own thing, and Lyft is its own thing, and Ola Cabs is its own thing, and Instacart is its own thing, and so on and so forth. Right? There is no one aggregator, like this, in the same sense that Google was an aggregator, where it is one place where you can come to avail of all of these services, and it was the service that knew the best of what everybody else knew. In this case, the fragmentation has also resulted in these services knowing far more deeply about what they're providing a service on. Like Uber knows far more about cabs than just a web link to uber.com that Google can provide. And there's a huge amount of fragmentation there. And some of the fragmented people are using their power and, of course, their revenue to build platforms, such as VChat being the big one. But as you can see from the example of Ola Cabs, they're building a platform. It's not only about a cab company. It's about delivering any kind of thing from one place to another. And so the buzzword for that is O2O, offline to offline. And that's what is building up. Now, it's still demand-driven, right? It is still, now it's just getting a lot more intelligent, a lot more aware. But you still have to say, find me a cab. Find me a cab to San Francisco Airport. You have to say that, right? And again, not yet an assistant, right? Your assistant would know that you have a flight at 3 p.m. today, so book a cab for 1 p.m. so that you can be in time to get through security and such. So still demand-driven, but a lot more intelligent, right? But all the ingredients are building up, right? And so then what are we still not yet, what have we not built up for, right? So what in addition to all of this do assistants know, right? Besides them knowing about the world and knowing about services in the world. Well, they know your personal preferences. They know what airline you prefer to travel on and things of that nature. They know your habits, like they know what time you have lunch, for example. They know about relationships. Like you can say call my wife, and actually there's a clear awareness of what call my wife means, right? There's a awareness of who your relationships are. They know what's important, what's not. So if your schedule gets overbooked and somebody has to be bumped to make room for somebody else, there's a clear awareness of who can be bumped to make room for somebody else. And last but not the least, they can do things before being told. Not always, but in many cases, right? Like you have lunch every day, right? And your schedule's in front of the assistant. So today you don't have time to go out to eat lunch, and so call in a sandwich. Doesn't have to be told to do that. The assistant can do that by themselves. There's extra traffic to San Francisco. Leaving at 1 is not enough. Leave at 12 today. Doesn't have to be told. It's expected that somebody would be able to predict that kind of a need. And we still have, this is what we are building up for, right? And this is sort of the last concept I want to leave you with, right? Like, so what does the future portend, and what are we building up for? I'll use the phrase predictive assistant, right, for that concept. So having built up all of this knowledge of the world, and let's assume that you're comfortable marking in your address book, who your sister is and who your wife is and kids are and so on and so forth, right? You can do that. The very fact that you have a phone in your pocket all the time allows a service like Google or Siri to actually learn a lot about your habits, right? It's not hard to learn where you work or where you stay, or are you traveling right now? Are you in your home city? Are you not in your home city? Mapping services have gotten accurate enough that we can, like the phone can say very clearly within like maybe a 30 feet by 30 feet square exactly where you are. So if you are in a mall, in a particular store, we're getting pretty close to being able to say, not just that you're in the mall, certainly much more than you're in the city, but even more than you're in the mall, you're in this store, or you're in this restaurant, right? It's not just the strip mall, but you're in that restaurant. So there's a lot more that the device is aware of your context, right? They know the time of the day, we know your home, work, kind of creepy, but it's the sort of creepiness is one of those things which sort of gets counterbalanced if the service that is offered is compelling in exchange for that. And here is some set of examples, right, of the kind of services that could be offered. Given that we know your home and your work, there's no reason why at 8 a.m. every morning we cannot tell you, okay, today there's extra traffic. It's usually it's 30 minutes, today it's 40 minutes, right? Or you live in San Francisco, today is 72. And by the way, if it's going to rain today, and it usually doesn't rain in summer, then today is special, right? Like it's going to rain today, and alert you to that one. You follow sports, you live in this area, it's football season, you follow the 49ers, there's no reason why the device cannot alert you of the upcoming game, the channel it's playing on, or if it's playing right now, what the scores are, or if there's something really interesting happening right now, like a big lead or a close game or something like that, to alert you that something interesting is happening here right now. All of that is within the realm of very possible now, given all the other stuff that has been built up to know about the world, and all the things that the phone actually knows about you. So then this really gets into more assistant-like functionality. Here's another example, right? So you could argue that going to a search box, and this was the word I had used for, I'll sort of distinguish between demand-driven services and assistive services, right? Demand-driven, you still have to go and convert your thoughts into some words or some speech now. And ask, right? But that means you have to go to some specific app, such as the Google app or the Siri app or somewhere. You have to go to some place and you have to ask the question. But it's often unnatural to do that. Like you're in an email and it's really small text, but the text was about, hey, do you want to meet? Do you want to meet and go for this movie, right? And that's a fairly natural email that somebody could send to somebody else. Do you want to watch this movie on Friday evening, right? And now you want to find out about this movie because they haven't told you what this movie is about or how good its rating is or where it's playing. So you would have to like cut and paste from that thing, Tomorrowland, in the email, go to a search box, type it in there, and then you would get hopefully something with the answer and actions, and then you would go to Fandango or somewhere and buy the tickets for the movie or read the reviews for the movie. But it's still one step removed from where you were, right? Like, again, like map it to assistants, right? Like you're not in the middle of a conversation or in a meeting and you have to hop over to another room to get some assistance, right? Like your assistant would be in the room at the same time, and you would sort of they would predict that you're needing some help here right now, or at worst you might be able to ask. You don't have to hop over to another room to ask for assistance. So why do you have to do that in apps or on the phone, right? And so the concept here is help where you are, right? You're in an email and somebody asks you, do you want to watch Tomorrowland on Friday? And you should be able to do some gesture and find out more about Tomorrowland and read information, reviews, book a ticket, and quickly go back to your task, which was answering that email. And that's the notion of help where you are. And so that's how the general concept is building up from like being from blue links to awareness about the world, to actions, to offline services, to knowing about you and being able to predict your behavior, and being able to provide you assistance even before you ask for it. And that sort of then is building up towards a true assistant functionality, which your phone totally can become, but there's a lot to be built up to get to that point. And with that, that's pretty much all I had. Thanks for your attention.
Testing. Great, thanks. Thanks, Jake. Any questions?
So from our side, from the business side, where is Google pulling all this information that they're going to be serving? Are they pulling it from Google Play, Google My Business, or how do we facilitate that?
The information still pretty much comes from exactly the places that you used to provide the information before, which is indeed either through Yellow Page or aggregator kind of providers, or your own feeds through the My Business input into Google. It's exactly the same source of information. The difference is in where it surfaces and how it gets used. So there it's no different. So for example, let's say it's a hotel, and traditionally you would query for the hotel, and you'd get a card about the hotel, right? And maybe services that the hotel offers, and address and phone number. The only difference here would be it would surface maybe even before the user has asked for it, and maybe they're just in the vicinity. We know the user is outside of their home city and needs a hotel, or we know from the queries and traffic that they're looking for something to do with travel, and we could recommend them hotels in the vicinity of where they're looking for attractions. So the source of the information remains pretty much the same. There's no additional thing that you need to do. It's just that how it gets used and the entry points to that information might differ. And sort of, so I guess a follow-up question might be, well, there are pieces of information that you don't provide right now, like not necessarily for hotels, but let's say the example of the haircut, the salon that I gave, right? Traditionally, the salon through the business interface might give only their address and phone number and things of that nature. They don't traditionally give their service menu, right? And right, today the partnership is through intermediaries, these companies who aggregate restaurant menus and salon service menus and their calendars. The usual evolution in things like this is you start with the aggregators because they have a collection of things, and then you slowly move towards direct information from the service provider and provide some way for them to provide their restaurant menu or their service menu directly. We haven't reached that point yet, but you can imagine that that's how these things usually go. How do we accumulate customer preferences across their device?
You know what service she got at that salon that day, and was it time for that particular process versus just a hair trim, right?
Yeah. So that so knowing something to that level of detail, like okay, somebody has a haircut once every 2 weeks, that sort of thing. I think that is still, I would say, safely 2 years out. I think right now, we are barely scratching the surface on knowing, okay, you stay here, you commute at this time, you know, you like these teams, you like action movies, you like this actor, things of that nature. That's really what it's building up with right now. You can totally imagine that sort of once that problem is nailed, the next one would be like finer grain things, like okay, haircut every 2 weeks and kid gets dropped off every morning, that sort of thing. I would say that's safely 1 year to 2 years out.
Yeah, when you talk about predictive assistance or predictive analysis, so I wanted to know like what exactly is Google planning to achieve? Is it, and how is it planning to achieve? Is it through like machine learning or writing some algorithms? So,
yeah.
So Like, what does Google plan to achieve in near future, and how does it plan to do that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair. So if you look at examples like take this example, right? So clearly so the beauty of the query interface is you have already spelled out your need, right? You have spelled out exactly what you want. So there is very low risk of annoying you with gratuitous information. While when you're going out on a limb and saying, this is what you might need right now, without you having spelled it out, the bar for saying this is very likely what you want right now is actually pretty high, right? Because there's any given second, there's a ton of stuff happening in the world, right? We cannot keep inundating you with everything that's happening. So then what really that boils down to is like understanding very clearly what your interests might be, understanding very clearly, are you driving right now or are you stationary right now? The beauty is that the phone actually gives you a lot of those signals, because if you're driving, the phone is moving too, so it knows at what speed you're moving and in which direction and stuff. So, but the more precisely you can locate the user, their movement, the time of the day, their habit, the less annoying it becomes. And that is where, to your point, a lot of these machine learning kind of techniques have to come into bear, because you have to study the user habits, not just for the one user, but across like a whole cohort of users that, yeah, in general, 8:15 in the morning people drive, right? I mean, you can understand that. Or in general, when they are outside of their home city, they are traveling, sometimes on business, sometimes on personal travel, right? These sort of things have to be learned, and then the more precisely you can learn these, the more you can tailor the recommendations that can be made.
Okay, we have time for one more question. We have the last question. Going once? Going twice? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.